Cam Sutton, and he got suspended. You know, they came down with the hammer last week, 8 games. Now, first off, let's talk about a little bit of suspensions in the NFL. Just a brief second here, if you will. My man, Art Foltz, you know, they've been suspending and people in the NFL for a long time. And mainly they've been cheating in the National Football League for a long time. So way back in 1925 is when the first NFL actual suspension came into play. And Art Foltz from the Chicago Cardinals decided that he was going to hire high school players to come and play against his team so they could win a championship. Other team wasn't going to have enough players to play, couldn't hire any more professionals, didn't think about college. So what he did was he went out and hired high school players to go play. Wow, I mean, you talk about the level of cheating back in those days. Lord have mercy. But anyway, that's what happened. First signs of cheating, first suspension. He got banned for life. He got banned for life at that time and ended up coming back the very next season. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. Just a little side note, people. Just a little side note to talk about suspensions. So let's get into Cam Sutton. Look, I don't think anybody was surprised that Cam Sutton got suspended. I don't think that was a surprise to anybody. I think the Steelers were comfortable with knowing what type of suspension and how long it was going to be. I think they were pretty comfortable at that. And if you've been paying attention to suspensions, you know, around the league for the crimes that he allegedly committed, you know, it kind of fits the bill. I'm not going to go into all these. You see the graphic right there. You know, it kind of fits, you know, the same bill as far as what those people got. That's what Cam Sutton got. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I'm not trying to convict him or anything like that. There's a lot of people out there that think that the Steelers, not necessarily the Steelers, but Cam Sutton's lucky because it could have been longer. And I'm in that boat. I'm like, 8 games, it might seem like a lot. It isn't. Again, based on what he allegedly did, and, you know, running from the cops for 3 weeks. Come on, man. Like I said, 8 games, count your lucky blessings, Cam Sutton, that it was only 8 games. And again, the Steelers signed him. A lot of people probably didn't want him to sign him based on what he allegedly did. But if the Steelers were satisfied, it looks like they probably did their own investigation. They were okay with it. And if they're okay with it, we as fans, I think we as fans need to be okay with it. So he's serving his punishment. Now, having said all of that, what is next? What do the Steelers do next? Well, the first thing is, and I've talked about this ad nauseum, is are the people on the current roster, are they capable of taking the position? I think the Steelers got to look at this 2 ways. They've got to look at this is, first of all, how does it change the trajectory of the defense? Like, are they going to play a lot more nickel packages when they should be in dime, or vice versa? Or are they going to play a lot of more nickel when they should be in base defense? Like, how is this going to change the trajectory of the defense? But before we even start talking about any of that, you know, any scheme type of stuff, I think we got to talk about who's going to be in that slot corner position. Like, who's going to be the guy? And the Steelers have choices to make. Like, first off, are they going to go out and sign a free agent? I think that's the first thing that we got to decide. Are we going to sign a free agent? Now, the thing about that is we don't have a lot of time before camp, but defense isn't one of those positions where it's not like offense where you got to get in a fit here or there. It's like defense, okay, this is where you line up when we're here. This is what you do when we're here. Versus offense, there's a lot more fitting in. And, you know, if you're a receiver, and we'll get into that later, you know, it's just a different type of fit versus offense versus defense. So there's DBs that are out there. Look, I was screaming from the rooftops when Xavier Howard got cut. This was before the Deontay Johnson trade happened. I was screaming that the Steelers go sign him. And it didn't happen. And nobody has signed him up to this point. He didn't have a great year last year, but it wasn't horrific. You know, it wasn't something that you couldn't live with. I can tell you what, he was better than the second cornerback that the Steelers were playing last year. You know, regardless of Levi Wallace, Patrick Peter, he was better than those guys. and would be better than those guys. Is he better than Jackson? I don't know. That part I don't know. But there are some definite DBs out there. I mentioned Patrick Peterson, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Akio Witherspoon, who played for the Steelers, had a good year with the Rams last year. That's the one to keep an eye on for me. I think you could bring him back. Now, if you're looking at the graphic, obviously you're going to see some DBs and you're going to see some safeties. And you're going to think, come on, Big B. These safeties guys can't play, in the slot corner. And you might be right. There's a few that I think might be able to, but these are still unsigned defensive backs that are out there. The one person that I can just speak for, I'll say for the majority of Steeler fans out there, we can't bring back Patrick Peterson, man. No. Look, I love him. I think he's great, or he was great. I think he's a great guy. He knows defense. He wants to help. But we saw what it looked like when he tried to play outside corner last year. He tried to play slot corner last year. It did not look pretty. It looked terrible, to be quite frank with you. He was much better when he was in a hybrid safety position. That is not what a slot corner is. And to bring Patrick Peterson back to do that, there's other guys out there. Look, Stephon Gilmore, even at an advanced age, was much better, miles better than Patrick Peterson was last year. Xavier Howard, better. And now J.C. Jackson, I don't know, but he's available. And maybe if he doesn't have to play outside, maybe that's a guy we look to bring in. Like I said, Akio Witherspoon, though, again, a guy that played for the Steelers, not last year, but the previous 2 seasons, played well, then got hurt his hamstring and never really recovered. And then the Steelers let him go. And then he goes to the Rams last year and played well. Now, they didn't bring him back, so people may be thinking, well, why didn't they bring him back? Again, corner is one of those positions you can wait on a little bit. You don't necessarily have to have veteran corners at the beginning of camp. Would it be nice? Yeah, of course it would be. You want to have as many people as possible, but you can wait a little bit on a veteran corner that you're going to want to bring in. But hopefully the Steelers do that. I personally believe if they brought in, like I mentioned, Xavier Howard or Stephon Gilmore, think about this. They come in and they play slot corner or wherever they're going to play, which I think slot corner is a good spot. And maybe, I don't think Dante Jackson can play slot corner, but maybe he can. Maybe we find all that out, and then it works out even better. Well, then Cam Sutton comes back. You're telling me that a Xavier Howard, Joey Porter Jr., Cam Sutton, you're telling me that doesn't look good? Of course it looks good. You throw in Dante Jackson, who would be starting on the other side. That's a solid core when we're in a nickel or dime package on top of Mika Fitzpatrick, who's back at his normal position and doesn't have to play down in the box, doesn't have to get down there and cover guys and those. Yeah, that starts to look real good in the secondary. So that's just something to keep in mind, Steeler fans. Just keep that in the back of your mind, when we're going through training camp here in a few weeks. If it doesn't start looking good, I think the Steelers got to make a move and do that. Now, as far as a trade is concerned, now here's a trade that a lot of people in the media have been talking about. It hasn't necessarily been thrown out by any teams. You're not hearing a ton of smoke about it. But James Bradberry for the Philadelphia Eagles, he's available, people. Look, I know what you're thinking is, oh, come on, B. He played terrible last year. And he did. But you know us at Steelers Almighty. You know our theory on when guys get paid. 2022, he was on a prove-it deal, second team All-Pro. 2023, he had gotten paid. Didn't have such a good year. I'm just throwing it out there. Y'all know how we feel about that at Steelers Almighty here. Guys that get paid, the year after they get paid, the numbers don't look good. And you can look at that throughout history. Many more guys, after the year after they get paid, they don't do squat. They sit back, they get fat, they do whatever they do, and they just don't play as well. I'm not saying all guys, but a lot of guys, the majority of guys. Looks like Bradberry may have been one of those. Looks like it is. The one thing that I know for an absolute fact, though, Philadelphia Eagles have made him expendable. because they drafted over him. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Yeah, they just said, fine, if this is the way it's going to be, we're going to recruit over, or not recruit, but draft over top of you. His contract isn't stupid. It's not stupid. If you go and take a deep dive, it's mostly bonus money. So if the Steelers did trade for him, and again, when I say trade, no more than a 6th-round pick. Absolutely no more than a 6th-round pick for James Bradberry. And I'll be honest with you, I think the Eagles would come off of it. I really do. I think the Eagles have clearly moved on, and they would be done with James Bradberry if they could get off that contract. And again, the contract itself isn't that stupid. The Steelers wouldn't even be on the hook for that much because the majority of it is a bonus. So that would be Eagles that would have to pay that. So I like it. I like that trade. And again, think about James Bradberry in the mix, and he plays well. You got James Bradberry, Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, week 9 or week 10, actually. You get Cam Sutton back. Secondary looks real good, doesn't it? Again, keep it in mind. Keep that in mind. Just in the back of your head, Steeler fans. That's something to think about. Now, let's just say none of that the Steelers want to do. Well, who's on the roster now that can fill the bill? And actually, if we're all being honest, that is probably what's in the Steelers' best interest, is for somebody currently on the roster to step up and be the man. That is what is in the Steelers' best interest. That way you're not giving any extra cap money. You're not losing or wasting any draft capital. That's just what's in their best interest. We're trying to develop these guys. Well, who do we got? Well, first up, Anthony Averett. Yes, I get it. We signed him this offseason. Now, he was out of football, but we signed him this offseason. Maybe he's that next guy. I like Corey Trice Jr. Obviously, coming out 2 years ago, a lot of people said he had a better grade than Joey Porter Jr., but part of that grade, though, for me, was injuries. You have to count that. But if you were just talking skill-wise, a lot of people had a better grade on him. And, I mean, several scouts. But he fell to the 7th round because, of course, the injury history. And then what does he do when he gets to the Steelers? He immediately gets hurt. So, again, that's a problem. We're not blaming him. We don't blame injuries on people. But at the same time, fact is fact. Best ability is availability. Hasn't been available just yet. I've been screaming from the rooftops about Ryan Watts. I think Ryan Watts has an opportunity. Again, bigger, more physical, but I think he's got the quick twitch that you need to play slot corner. I think he's got it. Now, I'm also on record of saying that his best position is safety. I really believe that it is, but I think he can play slot corner. And if he can, man, I just look out, people. You get a big guy like that can play slot corner, I think the Steelers would be on to something. And then lastly, I know a lot of people have been screaming about Beanie Bishop, and wanting Beanie Bishop to be the guy to make the squad. I didn't have him on our 53-man roster. A couple weeks ago when we did that, I didn't have Beanie Bishop on there. With Cam Sutton now being officially suspended, I think Beanie Bishop's got a shot. I think he's got a real shot to make this roster. There's a couple other names. I'm not sure that we're that serious about it, but we could be. Who knows? I mean, again, camp is camp. Guys are going to be out there competing, but that's what we all love. We're going to find out who the guy is going to be. But those are the 4 top names for me that could be on this roster. I know there's a few other names that are out there. Just for me personally, I just don't know that those are going to be better names right now that are currently on the roster than what the Steelers have right now. So let's go here. We got a double poll question for everybody out there, man. This is a good one. So first one is, what is the best option that you could come up with for that is currently on the roster? And also, what's the best option in free agency? So let me repeat that again. The best option to play slot corner for people that are currently on the roster. And then what is the best option of any available free agent corners that are out there? Got a double poll question. Please make sure you leave all of your answers in the comments. This one should be very, very interesting, but from you guys. Yeah, I'm interested in what names are out there on the roster that you think should be added, or who you believe on the roster is going to get the job. Or more importantly, I'm really interested to see about this free agency thing. You think any Steelers or the Steelers should go out and get any of these guys? So let's move on to the next topic here, people.